Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our virtual town hall with our MPs. I'm David Wojcik, the President and CEO of your Mississauga Board of Trade. What a month this has been for our virtual events with MPPs, ministers, and today we welcome our local MPs. I want to thank Minister Omar Alghabra, recently appointed, not so recently anymore, I guess, recently appointed as Minister of Transport, and of course, the MP for the riding where the Mississauga Board of Trade resides. Also, great friends to the Mississauga Board of Trade joining us today, MP Peter Fonseca and MP Iqra Kalid. A special thanks to our sponsors for today's event, CN Rail, GTAA, and Sheridan College. And of course, a very special thanks to every one of you for joining us today. So I am going to step out of the way and turn it over to our Vice President of Government and Stakeholder Relations, Brad Butt. Brad, over to you.
Well, thanks very much, David, and good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today on this important town hall event with our local Mississauga members of Parliament. It's our great pleasure to have you join us today, and we are certainly looking forward to this morning's discussion. The COVID pandemic has certainly made the role of MPs crucial in Canada's response and the various support programs that have been established to support businesses and people. As a former member of Parliament myself, I can just imagine the work that our MPs and their staff have been doing this past year and continue to do so. And we want to extend our thanks and appreciation to all of you for that tremendous amount of work. Before we officially introduce our Mississauga MPs, I would like to thank CN, the Greater Toronto Airport Authority, and of course Sheridan College for their continued support of these programs and for being our sponsors of today's event. I also would like to recognize one of our elected officials that has joined the town hall today, Natalia Kusendova, the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Francophone Affairs and one of our local MPPs from Mississauga Centre. So before we start our event today, I'd like to quickly review the virtual event protocols for this meeting. All attendees will remain on mute as we are recording this event. A question and answer session will occur after the Mississauga MPs address us all. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom middle of your screen and enter your question. The questions are only visible to the MBOT staff and our panelists. We will endeavor to go through all of those questions, review them, make sure that they're relevant on federal issues for our MPs, and we'll do our very best to get as many of those questions in the hour that we have together today. But now to officially introduce our guests and say a few words, I'd like to welcome Daniel Salvatore. He's the Manager of Public Affairs in Ontario with CN Rail. Daniel?
Good morning, and thank you for that kind introduction, Brad, and greetings to all of our guests here today. It is my privilege this morning to represent CN and the over 25,000 railroaders that service our North American network daily. CN remains a proud member of the Mississauga Board of Trade and happy to be one of the presenting sponsors of this morning's event. I'd like to take a moment to share with you how CN is investing in Ontario. I'm happy to convey that in 2021, CN will be investing approximately $350 million through our Ontario capital investments that will include, among many projects, 65 new miles of rail and 75 crossings rehabilitated. With this investment, CN has invested more than $1.4 billion in Ontario over the past 5 years. Above and beyond these investments, or in addition to them, in 2020, CN purchased over 1,000 grain hopper cars to be produced by National Steel Car in Hamilton, as well as the acquisition of 50 electric trucks from Lion Electric in Quebec. These electric trucks will be used to pilot more sustainable operations on our network. CN continues to invest in the sustainable movement of goods. But enough about CN. It is my role here today to introduce our guests. First up, the Honorable Omar Alghabra, currently serving as Canada Minister of Transportation. Good morning, Minister. Good to see you again so soon without the face mask this time. Minister Alghabra was first elected as the Member of Parliament for Mississauga Centre in 2015 and also served as a Member of Parliament for Mississauga Arundel from 2006 to 2008. He served as Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, responsible for consular affairs, and to the Minister of International Trade and Diversification. Before becoming Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister, responsible for public service renewal, and to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs in 2019. Next up is MP Peter Fonseca. Peter, an Olympian who proudly represented Canada as a top marathon runner, is the Member of Parliament for Mississauga East Cooksville. Peter is no stranger to public service, sitting in the Ontario Legislature as a Member of Provincial Parliament between 2003 and 2011. Peter served as a cabinet minister, taking on the profile of labor and tourism and recreational portfolios. Good morning, Peter. Last but not least, we have MP Iqra Kalid, a lawyer, public servant, immigrant, and longtime resident of Erin Mills. Iqra is here to serve the diverse needs of the residents in her riding, and she knows what leadership requires, understanding that she works to inspire others to take an active role in building Canada. She has served as Member of Parliament for Mississauga Erin Mills since 2015. She's a strong advocate for women's issues and a steadfast ally in the cause of human rights, speaking out on issues such as human trafficking, online hate, and the Rohingya genocide. Iqra gives a voice to the people of Mississauga Erin Mills in her roles as member of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on International Human Rights, as chair of the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, and as chair of the Women's Caucus. Welcome all, and thank you for this opportunity this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's my cue now. Dan, thank you very much for that introduction, and good to see you again. Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Brad. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, friends. Let me start off by thanking MBOT for once again bringing us together. MBOT continue to be an active organization that advocates and speaks on behalf of businesses in Mississauga, mostly small businesses, to ensure that their concerns, that their experience, that their perspectives is reflected with policymakers and other important stakeholders. And it feels that I do an event at least once a month with MBOT over the last few years, which is great. And I'm honestly grateful for that opportunity, because it's really important. And frankly, if it wasn't for MBOT, I probably wouldn't have had as much interaction with so many key members of our community. I want to also say hello to other elected officials, provincial or municipal, who are here with us. Brad said nice things about the work that we are doing at the federal level, but the same applies to provincial and municipal. I've been saying this many times, that the pandemic, when COVID arrived, it did not arrive with an instruction manual. In fact, it forced us to throw away other instruction manuals that governments have been using for decades, and set aside all traditional processes because of the sense of urgency that COVID presented. And one of the positive outcomes of this is governments at all levels have set aside some territorialism that may have existed in the past and agreed to work together on protecting the safety and the health of Canadians, but also supporting businesses as they are grappling with COVID-19. COVID-19 has not been easy. Has not been easy on Canadians. Has not been easy on businesses. And I want to take a moment to thank everybody. To thank Canadians, individuals, businesses, entrepreneurs for finding a way. The key word that I've been hearing over the last few months is pivoting to address and respond to the reality that COVID has presented. Our government from day one has made a decision to focus on rolling out broad-based support for individuals and for small businesses to ensure that individuals and small businesses had some form of safety net at a time when there is so much uncertainty and so much chaos. So we've been from day one, we've been rolling out these broad-based support mechanisms, and all of you are familiar with those, and we've adjusted them over the months. We've adjusted them, and by the way, a lot of the adjustments was a byproduct, again, of the discussions that I and my colleagues, Peter, Iqra, Gaga, Nav, and others in the region have had with MBOT and with MBOT membership. So it's been difficult, and it continues to be difficult. We are now in the midst of third wave. The province and the federal government and municipality is doing their best to protect Canadians, but I say with a great sense of optimism that I see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I know this is an overused cliche, but I really do see a bright spot where up to today, we have more than 10.5. By the way, the best economic recovery plan is to put an end to COVID. While COVID is amongst us, it's going to be very hard. It's always an accommodation. It's always an adjustment. So what we're focusing on, in addition to supporting businesses, is making sure that we have the vaccine that people need. 10.5 million doses have arrived up until middle of this week. 19% of Canadians have received at least one dose. We're hearing here in Mississauga that the province now is accelerating vaccination, which is great news. So I feel that we're turning a page, even though it's hard to say this when we are in the midst of a third wave and we are just dealing with another lockdown, stay-at-home order. But I do feel that we are turning a page. But until we get there, we need to maintain our solidarity. We need to maintain our vigilance, and our federal government will always be there listening to you, working with you on finding ways as we navigate this choppy waters. I'll stop here and I'll hand it over to my colleagues. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, David. I don't know if you can hear me. If everybody can hear me, I'm on. Yeah, great. And I just want to thank MBOT. I want to start by thanking Brad for that kind introduction. You read it just the way I wrote it. So thank you very much, Brad, and to all the MBOT members, David, Brad, everybody for putting this together for us today. And you really have been just a great resource for all of us to be able to disseminate information that we have through the community, through the business community across Mississauga. So thank you for that. And it's great to be here with my colleague, and I just heard the Honorable Omar Alghabra, and as he kind of put out the landscape of where we are and what we've done and where we're going and how we're doing this all together, as well as I know my other colleague Iqra Kalid is on with us, and MPP Kusendova. So it's all been really about helping businesses stay open and keep workers on the payroll during this pandemic. You know, when the crisis first struck, Canadian business owners moved quickly to adapt to the new normal, whether that meant turning their restaurant into a corner store, shifting to takeout, or offering curbside pickup for goods like clothing and books. However, they couldn't shoulder the burden of COVID-19 alone, and which is why our government implemented several very important measures to help businesses cover the pandemic-related expenses, pay their employees, and keep their doors open. And these included, and I know we've heard them all, but it's important just to go over them: the Canada Emergency Business Account, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy, Business Credit Availability Program, Regional Relief and Recovery Funds, Black Entrepreneurship Program, support for Indigenous businesses, large employer emergency financing facility. and just recently the highly affected sectors credit availability program. All of these and more programs have really helped businesses to be able to weather the storm, to be able to bridge to better days. And while these measures continue to protect jobs and to ensure that local businesses we love don't close their doors, we can all do our part to help businesses prosper during this next wave of the pandemic and the wave that we're in. And this includes ordering takeout still from our neighborhood restaurants, buying food from local grocers, buying gift cards that we could later use, from our favorite hair salons and plant shops, and simply just promoting businesses the way that MBOT does through our social media, et cetera, to ensure that we help those really that have been so hard hit. We've always said, and the Prime Minister's always said that we've got your back, to all Canadians and our businesses, and that's really what we're doing. So I know that through this pandemic, the federal government has invested greatly in really our greatest resource, our human resource, our businesses, and that has meant about 8 or 9 out of every $10 that has been invested to get us through this difficult time has come through the federal government, and we're very proud of that and our partnership with MBOT to be able to disseminate all of that to the many members and stakeholders. So thank you so much, and thank you for having us here.
I guess that it's my turn now. First and foremost, it's so great to see both Omar and Peter here with the Mississauga Board of Trade. Thank you, David, Brad, to the whole team. You do and have done such an excellent job in advocacy over the past number of years that I've been an elected official. You've had the opportunity to give positive feedback as to what businesses are looking for from the federal government. And you've also held our feet to the fire on occasion, which I think is definitely a right thing to do for Mississauga. So over the past year, and I won't repeat a lot of what my colleagues have said, but I think all politics is really local. And when we're talking about the supports that we've really laid out, it's really about the thousands of Mississauga residents that took benefits with whether it's the CERB or the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy or the business account. They really took advantage and were able to survive. And I think that going forward, and I'm hoping that as we go forward, a lot of the questions in our question answer today will kind of reflect what that new normal is going to look like for residents of Mississauga. Whether childcare is something that businesses absolutely need in order to grow themselves. Whether digital infrastructure is something that we need as Canada as the landscape of business really changes. I think that Budget 2021 is going to be a great step forward for residents of Mississauga, for the businesses that operate in Mississauga, as we really work together to build back in a better way. Where we've realized over the past year that what was normal is no longer what is acceptable. And that we do need to ensure that small businesses, which are the backbone of cities like Mississauga across the country, are well positioned to not only flourish themselves, but also help workers to flourish, to also help residents of cities like Mississauga flourish. So I'm really looking forward to the questions. And hopefully continuing to provide that support locally here in Mississauga, whether it's, I know my colleagues and I have been working on the Canada Summer Jobs Program in providing opportunities for businesses to hire thousands of students over the summer here in Mississauga, or whether it's through the New Horizons funding, providing support for seniors within our city of Mississauga, creating those events and programs that really address that core of what Canadians and Mississaugans have been facing over the past year, whether it's mental health. And all of these things do have impact on small business. So I'm hopeful there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. The federal government is 100% on board to continue to listen to what businesses have to say so that we are able to progress in a good way and to be leaders in Canada and across the world in how we conduct business and how we make sure that our citizenry is well taken care of. So with that, I'm really looking forward to your questions. And and hopefully we'll continue to build a better and more progressive Canada.
Well, thank you very much to all three of our MPs for introductory remarks and for talking about a number of the issues that I know our audience is interested and concerned about. And I'm fairly sure we're going to get a number of questions posed around COVID-19 and related issues. But I just want to remind everybody watching that if you do have a question, if you want to submit a question for our MPs to respond to, please use that Q&A button that is at the middle bottom of your screen. I'll be taking a look at them and vetting them, and I'll then be asking them of our panelists. But before we get into COVID-19, we have a little event happening on April the 19th. It's known as a federal budget. So I'd like to ask each of our MPs, have you got a specific ask of Minister Freeland in that budget? Is there something you'd like to see announced in the budget on April 19th? And is there anything in there that you think specifically could benefit Mississauga? So maybe we can go in reverse order. Maybe we'll go Iqra, Peter, and Omar, and we'll see what's on your wish list in the federal budget.
Thanks very much for that, Brad. And like I said, politics is local, and we were here with the Mississauga Board of Trade. I guess I must have been last year around this time when we were talking about what exactly it is that businesses need. And one thing that I heard loud and clear from business owners here at MBOT and then across in my writing was the need for childcare, for a robust childcare system that is going to empower our workers to really give that 100%, that is going to give that training, that education, that high class quality of life that our future generations deserve. I think Budget 2021 is an opportunity for us to do that. Childcare, a universal, robust childcare program is definitely on not only my list, but also on the list of all of Women's Caucus. It's one of the things that we advocate for on a regular basis. A number of other things I'll address, support for small businesses, I think is on top of mind for a lot of members of Parliament. But also, in a city like Mississauga, we're dealing with issues with respect to housing. And I think that the need for us to have more affordable housing, not just in Mississauga, but across the country, is something that we need to address, not just at the federal level, but also provincially and locally. So that's another thing that I would really like to see, and not just housing that's affordable, but also housing that really takes into account the support that vulnerable communities need, and that individual Mississaugans need with respect to healthcare. We talk about long-term care centers, and quite frankly, the embarrassing way that not just in recent years, but over the past number of decades, that have led up to what long-term care is currently looking like, and the devastation that has occurred there over the past year. Being the chair of justice, I would be remiss if I didn't add that we do need to take a closer look at how the justice system is functioning during COVID, and how much resources we need to put in there to ensure that access to justice continues to be fair, continues to be robust. And then lastly, I think our youth really need that support, whether it's through mental health, whether it's through ensuring that their education continues, whether it's to ensuring that there's a transition from education into the workforce, an effective transition. I guess those are a few things on my wish list, but I'm sure my colleagues have lots more to add.
Maybe on to Peter.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks, Brad. And well, Iqra has a wonderful wish list, and it's I'm very aligned in mine if I look at some of the things here that I had just jotted down. But of course, in terms of affordable housing, a lot of my asks have been around infrastructure. Some of them to mitigate some of the issues that we've seen in my area, and that could be around flooding, etc. But roads, bridges, pipes, some stuff that is not so sexy, but also when it comes to the internet and being able to provide a lot more funding through our infrastructure. A lot of those dollars stay local. They create local businesses. The materials that are used for the most part are sourced locally. So it has a big spin-off effect, and it's about jobs, jobs, jobs. So you know what? It's getting people back to work and improving our productivity here in Mississauga and across Canada. So that has really been my focus, and my ask has been one around the economy, especially as we wanted to bounce back and bounce back better and stronger than we were pre-pandemic. And it was good to see StatsCan just came out today with some really, good numbers in terms of jobs. So I've seen that our unemployment rate has dropped significantly to about 7.5, I believe it was what the number was. 303,000 jobs this past month, which and it happened the month before and the month before that. So we are outpacing kind of what the markets or what business thought may happen. So that is a bright light, and to be able to do all that, I think through, like I said, infrastructure. A lot of people are working from home. Sometimes we don't think of the internet and think of some of the telecommunications that we need as infrastructure, but those are things that are necessary, and not only here in Mississauga, but just right across Canada to link our country and be able to really realize our full potential that we have. So there's a lot to do, and it's about getting all Canadians the ability to be able to fulfill their potential and get to work. So it's been my focus has been around that, around jobs, and of course helping our most vulnerable, which I think have been the hardest hit. You know, we call this the she session. This pandemic has hit the hardest women and our most vulnerable, and sometimes our lowest paid workers. So that is where our focus should be, to helping them through this time. Thank you.
Okay, and Omar?
Thanks, Brad. And I won't repeat what both Iqra and Peter said, because I believe that everything they said will benefit the businesses and the residents of Mississauga. I'll add a few things. Obviously, our focus right now is on tackling COVID, because as long as COVID persists, there's going to be a tension between restarting the economy and still tackling COVID. We can't restart the economy when we're still telling people, oh, lock down or stay at home, or you can't eat at restaurants. So we need to really, really double down on vaccination, on combating COVID. But obviously, we now need to also plan for what the restart is going to look like. And there's a role here for the federal government to stimulate the restart, to stimulate the economy, to jumpstart the economy after a year of significant recession. And there are some items that I hope to see in the budget that will very much directly impact the businesses, benefit the businesses and the residents of Mississauga. And I'll go through some of them that I hope will be in the budget, and I'm not then embarrassed if they're not in the budget, but I'll just talk about my wish list. One of them is going to be, everybody here knows in Mississauga, given our location and the type of businesses we have, that the aviation sector has been dramatically negatively impacted by COVID and travel measures. So I hope to see some kind of a package for aviation / aerospace sector, which I know will help many people who live here and work here, and some of the businesses that depend on the aviation sector. As well as I'm hoping, in addition to the infrastructure, let me be more specific to what Peter said, some trade corridor infrastructure. We've had in 2017, our government introduced a trade corridor, national trade corridor fund. I've asked Minister Freeland to replenish that fund and to find a way to expand it. And I'm hoping, some of these measures or some of these funds will help. One of the ideas in my head that I continue to support, and I hope I will continue to work on, is all-day two-way go on the Milton line. I know that would be very, very important for the residents and the businesses of Mississauga. And by the way, I've already been speaking to Minister Maroney in Ontario about this particular project. I would like to see some advances there. I would like to see again other. I know the childcare package would help a lot of the small businesses in Mississauga and in Canada. So those are airports. I talked about the aviation sector, airports. Airports, I would like to see airports benefit as well from the aviation package and as well from some of the other funds that are coming. So those are some of my wish lists. It's even longer, but I'll stop here. Thanks, Brad.
Well, thank you very much to all three of you for your comments on the budget. Of course, there's only one person that knows, and she won't be telling us until 4 o'clock on April the 19th, but we'll be watching very closely. And many of the items that you have mentioned are on our wish list too. So thank you very much for those. I do want to revert.
And Brad, I just want to emphasize the point you said, because some people may think my colleagues and I know what's in the budget. We really still don't know what's in the budget. So even though we are part of the government, but there are reasons why final budget decisions are kept to the last minute. So we're not really, so we don't have any insight yet into what's in the budget.
Well, and I can vouch for that too, because I served in the government and I didn't know either until 4:01 on the day of the budget, when the Minister of Finance stood in the House of Commons and revealed it. So I'm sure it's no different in your government than the one I served in. Often a surprise, but hopefully some good stuff from this budget. Talking about programs and budgets and so on, I do want to go back because we've had a couple of questions come in about a couple of the support programs that your government has brought in because of the pandemic. And I think on behalf of all of us, I think the first thing we want to say is thank you very much for bringing forward a number of these programs. They are extremely important and they've been very valued by many businesses, whether it be the rent subsidy program, the business loan, and some of the other programs, the wage subsidy and others. But like all programs that get created by government, they're never perfect. There are unintended consequences. There are always challenges that come around this. And to your government's credit, when these things have been brought to your attention, you've actually gone back and relooked at them and you've made some changes to some of the programs based on the feedback you got from businesses and some businesses that didn't qualify for things that was not the intention. But we still have a couple of areas that I'd like to ask you about and whether you might advocate to your government to consider some further changes. On the rent subsidy program, there still is some concerns about what's known as the arm's length restrictions. So you might have a restaurant in a building, you may own the building and also own the restaurant, and for some reason that's not qualifying. The business isn't being treated separate as it should be because the business still has to operate as that business. Is that something that you would look at, have the government relook at? And the second question that came in was around the CEBA, the Canadian Emergency Business Account, $60,000 loan qualification. It's been based on 2019 payroll, and would the government update that and look at having it reflect a 2020 payroll? So I don't know which MP wants to jump in on those two, but let's get those two out of the way because they did come in from one of our members earlier, and then we can move on to the other questions. So I'll open it up.
I'll jump in. Like you mentioned, Brad, we've and again I gave credit to MBOT and others in providing those feedback. And over the months, we have adjusted and we have looked into changes. Usually there are reasons when a policy is presented at the beginning, and then you're right, we can educate ourselves better and make adjustments. So these the things that you mentioned are being examined as we speak. I'm not able to give you any commitment to what the outcome of these review is going to look like, but I've heard it before, and I know the Ministry of Finance is re-examining it.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
I guess I'll just add to what Omar said. I mean, over the past year, we have absolutely been looking at and then revisiting how our policies and programs are benefiting individual Canadians and businesses. And as Omar had said in his opening remarks also, the focus right now is to make sure that the country is vaccinated. People want to open their businesses. People want to grow their business. They want to flourish. They want our city to flourish. And the way for us to get there absolutely is to provide that short-term support along the way, but it's also to ensure that people are getting those vaccines in the arms, that we are out of lockdowns, that we are really pushing forward and to growing our economy here at the local level. So we have to take both of those into account as we move forward on any decisions that'll be made on this.
Peter, did you want to jump in on that, or do you want me to move to the next question?
No, I think it speaks to the forum that we have here, and to be able to get the feedback that we're getting from your members, and to have this kind of virtuous loop where we take it back to the ministers, we take it to our caucus, we take it to different bodies that are able to then share more information, where we could see if something could be tweaked or changed, etc. And it's the same kind of continuous improvement, if you want to use that, for that business uses is all the time, to be able to better our policies and our systems. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to questions that are being submitted through the Q&A now. I don't know, Peter, if you're still a member of the International Trade Committee or not, but I know you were at one point in time. You might want to start with this question. The questioner says, I hear there is some excellent progress in trying to secure a Canadian exemption to Buy America with the new administration in the US. Are there any further details that you can share with us?
Yeah, so Brad, what I can say is, I know that publicly the Prime Minister has spoken with President Biden. I believe it was the first meeting that the two had of any foreign leader, and during those discussions, there was a lot of talk about our mutual benefit and our partnership in terms of our restarts, and I see a lot of alignment. So there is a lot of alignment in terms of what's happening stateside in the United States and what is happening here. So I think it has put us in a good place with a lot of opportunity. I can't speak to in terms of the Buy America, but I think those type of programs have always been in place in the United States. And of course, we work under the new COSMA agreement, and I believe, like I said, that with the new American administration and the alignment that I see, and I believe everybody sees, there'll be a lot of opportunity for Canada, for our businesses.
I know Minister Alghabra, because I've seen it on Twitter. You've already had several meetings with your U.S. counterpart on talking about better cooperation between Canada and the United States. Is there anything you want to add around the new relationship that our government and the new Biden administration are having, and whether we're seeing positive trends towards a more fruitful relationship than maybe we had with the previous administration, which it was at times a little choppy? I don't know, you want to pipe in and talk about that a bit?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Let me also echo what Peter said. There's never been a positive alignment between our two governments than today. We are very much in sync with the priorities, our administration with their administration, on COVID, combating COVID, on economic and stimulating our economy, on combating climate change, on social equity. There's a lot of alignment between our two governments and our two countries. And I can assure you, I've already had two one-on-one meetings, virtual meetings with Secretary Buttigieg, as well as was part of the broader bilateral meeting between our two governments with the President and the Prime Minister. And at every moment, every conversation I had, the situation with Buy America was brought up and was discussed, and our colleagues have been receptive and showing a lot of good faith. but I do want to say it is a challenging issue. Like Peter said, there's always this reactionary instinct in the United States whenever they're going through, or the world is going through an economic challenge, to focus on short-term domestic buy-in. And what we're doing here in Canada is making sure we're reminding our friends in the United States that Canada is the largest customer, and that there will be a lot of unintended consequences to American businesses and to American workers. So we're making sure that we advance this argument, and we're going to do everything we can to protect Canadian workers and Canadian businesses. But I don't have any concrete outcomes to share with you, except to say that we are being received well, and the discussions are ongoing at every opportunity.
And did Iqra want to add anything?
No, I think my colleagues covered it.
Okay. So our next question is it's sort of a broader question, and the questioner is asking about trust in government. And I don't think he necessarily means trust in individual MPs, but government institutions and stuff. One of the challenges I think we've all had is that some of our institutions, whether it be the Public Health Agency of Canada, the National Immunization Council, and others, where decisions have changed, issues have changed. We're getting different messages from time to time from different officials. And it's not just the federal government, it's the provincial government as well around the entire pandemic. Situations changing. I mean, certainly in the case of Ontario, lockdown, not lockdown, this, that. And I think to some degree, there's been a little bit of eroding of trust among the public in government and government institutions because things have changed. Now we recognize that COVID and the situation has changed, and we learn new things. I think it was Minister Alghabra that said it very well. You know, this didn't come with a playbook. And we are to some degree making it up as we go because we're learning more and things are changing. But what would you say to people that are saying, as an example, you don't have to specifically answer this area, but people are saying we got conflicting messages on the AstraZeneca vaccine, and now I'm not going to get a vaccine at all, which is not the message we want to send to people. We want people to get vaccinated regardless of which vaccine gets administered to them. But they're saying they're concerned, they're losing trust and credibility in these institutions. So what would you say to people that say that they're really concerned about their level of trust in government? And whoever wants to start can go ahead. Iqra, if you want to start, you seem to be on the screen, so go ahead.
Well, I guess I'll start, and I'll hope that my colleagues will jump in. Look, this past year, I think if I'm really looking at it from the perspective of the average Canadian who's either lost their job, has been impacted by COVID, can't go anywhere, has been restricted. I think the feeling that a lot of Canadians have, and I really understand, is a little bit of helplessness and frustration, and the fact that a lot of the decisions that are impacting their lives are not decisions that they themselves are making. Whether it's about lockdowns, whether you can go on your summer or spring vacation or not. And I think that really feeds into a lot of how people perceive decision makers. I mean, I have to remind everyone that this is a very unprecedented time. There is no rule book that we follow to say, this is how we're going to deal if in the instance of a pandemic. This is the first in our lifetime. And I think that the way from the federal perspective, from the federal government, we were able to not only be very, very agile and very surgical in the kind of supports that we provided to Canadians, but also we're willing to go back and listen and tweak and amend as needed by Canadians. And another reality of Canada is that we are very, very diverse geographically, regionally. A lot of the country has a lot of different priorities, and taking all of that into account, As somebody who lives in Mississauga may or may not understand what rural Alberta's experience is going to be. And so I think the trust that Canadians place in governments is one that we as individual members of parliament really need to continue to build and to sustain. I mean, this past year, our constituency offices became the last line of defense, or the last place that Canadians went to seek help. And I'm sure my colleagues can affirm that the work has doubled and tripled within our offices, and we do our very best to ensure that Canadians get that support that they need. And it really is up to each and every one of us to continue by our actions, by listening, by adjusting the way that we're functioning, to continue to build that trust. I know that I'm dedicated to it, and I'm sure that my colleagues are also.
So, Brad, I think that was a great question, and I thank Iqra for what she had to say. And I concur. So our offices really have been inundated with calls for information. And information about vaccines, information about programs, information about if I qualify, don't qualify, can my kids go to school this week, not go to school this week, and it doesn't matter what level of government. And we've been having to answer all of these questions or do the best that we can and help them navigate the system. So your question about trust, trust is vital. It is vital to for the belief in government and the belief that people are getting the right information for themselves, for their families, for their business, for their community. So what we've really stuck to is when you think about it, transparency and accountability. And the transparency is when it comes to COVID. So I believe since right from the get-go, it has been all about the science and the experts and making sure everything is available online. So when we look at the amount of vaccines that are coming in, it is all there for everybody. I know everybody always talks about it every day. How much is this or how much there or what all these different questions, but it is on the website. You can see what has come into the country, how it's being distributed across the country. It is all there for any Canadian to be able to see. So what we've done in our office to be able to build that trust is to get as many facts, we stick to the facts as we possibly can. And these have to be, real concrete facts, not made up, stories or conspiracy theories that are out there, etc. The only way to address those that have come to us are through facts. And that is the way to build trust, is to keep putting facts out there. But it is a never-ending battle struggle because of the amount of noise that is out there, be it on the internet or people's conversations, etc. And that noise comes back again to us with many questions, rightfully so. And what we try to do through our office, and I'm sure I can attest that it's happening through my colleagues' offices, is to provide the facts to our constituents so that they can make better decisions for themselves, their families, and their businesses.
Omar, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, Brad, thanks for the question. I want to particularly thank John, who is a friend of mine I haven't seen in a long time, for his question. And he's right that the fluidity of the situation has sometimes caused people who already may have skepticism towards government to increase that skepticism. And that's something that we all need to worry about. Not just people who serve in government, but I think the broader society, we all need to make sure that we maintain trust in government. And by the way, let me just say that this is the reason why sometimes, or typically, government take long time before studying a matter, reaching a decision, implementing a plan. And usually it frustrates people. Why are you taking such a long time to study something? This is the reason why. It's because governments want to avoid missing something when they're making decisions. However, governments have decided during this pandemic, we throw this out the window. We expose ourselves. We're willing to make decisions quickly based on the level of information we have, even though we know that it might expose us to criticism as we discover more information later on. But we thought, and we still believe that's the right thing to do because we needed to act quickly. And it's true. Based on evolving science and information, we've changed decisions, whether it's on public health and whether it's on economic situations, because we were willing to act quickly, but also be willing to be humble about our decisions and change our mind as we learn. And as you said, all governments at all levels have been doing this. But it's really important that we explain to people. And I think, explain to people why we're changing our minds, what the new evidence says, and why the change of heart. It's very important because I think Canadians honestly understand we are going through a once in 100 or 200 years pandemic where we've never seen anything like this before. We are learning as we go. So Canadians, for the most part, understand that this is new, that the information is evolving. They just need to know that government is doing its best. It's doing its best to be by them, to protect them. So I feel overall, while people are, shaking their head at sometimes changing opinions or decisions, but deep inside they know. Deep inside they know how complicated and how novel the situation is, and they just need to see public officials explain their decisions, explain the evolution of their decisions, and that they're doing their best to the best of their ability to be by the public side, to be there supporting them as we're all going through this difficult time. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. I know there's a couple of other questions in the Q&A, but I think we have run out of time for today. But I want to express our thanks, and you're going to be officially thanked in a moment. But I just wanted to express my personal thanks for the three of you joining us today. I know this is a busy weekend for you with the Liberal Policy Convention, and we do appreciate you taking an hour out of your time to spend with members of the Mississauga Board of Trade today. But to officially thank our guest speakers today, please welcome Michelle McKenzie. She's the founder of McKenzie Business Strategies, and she's the Peel Region nominee to the Board of Directors of the Greater Toronto Airports Authority. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Brad. And the Mississauga Board of Trade for putting together this important discussion today. I really enjoyed the questions, the quality of the questions, and the sincerity of the answers. The GTAA is very pleased to be a sponsor, and it is my pleasure to provide some closing remarks. First, a big thank you to Minister Alghabra, our local transport minister, and MP Kalid and Fonseca for joining us and for your efforts on behalf of in responding to COVID-19. We see you working on behalf of Canadians and on behalf of Mississauga and Peel residents, and in what's been a very, very challenging time. Personally, at a time when it feels like there are more questions than answers, these forums are more important than ever. And it's so very important to be able to engage with our business colleagues and our elected officials to share ideas and to work collaboratively to solve common challenges. Well, COVID has been nothing short of devastating to the travel and tourism sector. At Toronto Pearson, we're proud of the way we've transformed the airport to deliver on our healthy airport commitment and to support our public health through passenger and workforce COVID-19 testing and hopefully a vaccination site at the airport in the very near future. As Canada's largest airport, we played a critical and evolving role in Canada's COVID-19 response, including the repatriation of Canadians, the implementation of new government screening processes, the processing of critical cargo to keep our economy functioning, and very importantly, the arrival of vaccines to Canada. We're committed to the health and safety of passengers, all airport workers, and our adjacent communities, and will continue to work with health agencies, particularly Peel, to ensure systems and procedures are in place to minimize risk to the traveling public, everyone working at Toronto Pearson, and our neighbors. Minister Alghabra MPs, we look forward to continuing to work with your government to reinvigorate the travel and tourism sector when the time is right. In 2019, Toronto Pearson served 50 million passengers and facilitated 300,000 jobs in the airport employment zone. the second largest employment zone in the country. In 2020, we only handled 13.3 million travelers. With vaccine rolling out and public health measures in place, we know recovery will happen and that Toronto Pearson will once again deliver economic benefits to this region. We look forward to the federal budget. And Minister, I was encouraged to hear you mention the aviation sector and airports on your wish list. They're on my wish list too. Airports investments would support a safe restart of travel and ensure long-term competitiveness of this region and of Canada. And we're seeking future investments for travel and tourism, as well as for touchless technologies, investments to meet Canada's net zero environmental goals, and to improve public transit. As Canada and the world prepare for an expected recovery following the successful rollout of vaccines, Pearson stands ready with a strong focus on health to welcome the world and to do our part to stimulate economic recovery. And thanks again for being here today and for inviting GTAA to be part of this important discussion.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you again to CN Rail, of course, the Greater Toronto Airports Authority and Sheridan College for sponsoring today's event. And thank you again to our Mississauga MPs for joining us. We have a couple of upcoming events we'd like to make all of you aware of. On April 15th, so next Thursday, we will be celebrating the best of business with the Business Awards of Excellence. This event recognizes 120 nominees in 11 categories. And you can also place an order for a fabulous dinner with the Mississauga Convention Center and join us to watch the awards. On April 22nd, joining us in the From the Corner Office series is Jeff Leger. He is the president of Shoppers Drug Mart. And with the rollout of vaccines in pharmacies, that promises to be an outstanding event to attend. And as we're looking forward to summer, put a mark on your calendar today for our upcoming annual Golf Classic that will be on July the 12th. So again, thank you all for joining us today. We want to wish you continued success in your business.